Digital infinity is a technical term in theoretical linguistics. Alternative formulations are discrete infinity and the infinite use of finite means. The idea is that all human languages follow a simple logical principle, according to which a limited set of digits, irreducible atomic sound elements, are combined to produce an infinite range of potentially meaningful expressions. Language is, at its core, a system that is both digital and infinite. To my knowledge, there is no other biological system with these properties. Single quote. It remains for us to examine the spiritual element of speech. This marvelous invention of composing from 25 or 30 sounds an infinite variety of words, which, although not having any resemblance in themselves to that which passes through our minds, nevertheless do not fail to reveal to others all of the secrets of the mind, and to make intelligible to others who cannot penetrate into the mind all that we conceive and all of the diverse movements of our souls. Single quote. Noam Chomsky cites Galileo as perhaps the first to recognize the significance of digital infinity. This principle, notes Chomsky, is the core property of human language, and one of its most distinctive properties. The use of finite means to express an unlimited array of thoughts. In his Dialogo, Galileo describes with wonder the discovery of a means to communicate one's most secret thoughts to any other person, with no greater difficulty than the various collocations of 24 little characters upon a paper. Quote, "This is the greatest of all human inventions." Galileo continues, "comparable to the creations of a Michelangelo. The computational theory of mind, digital infinity, corresponds to Noam Chomsky's universal grammar mechanism, conceived as a computational module inserted somehow into Homo sapiens' otherwise messy, non-digital brain. This conception of human cognition, central to the so-called cognitive revolution of the 1950s and 1960s, is generally attributed to Alan Turing, who was the first scientist to argue that a man-made machine might truly be said to think. The idea of a thinking machine had previously been considered absurd, having been famously dismissed by René Descartes as theoretically impossible. "Neither animals nor machines can think," insisted Descartes, "since they lack a God-given soul." Turing was well aware of this traditional theological objection, and explicitly countered it. Today's digital computers are instantiations of Turing's theoretical breakthrough in conceiving the possibility of a man-made universal thinking machine, known nowadays as a Turing machine. No physical mechanism can be intrinsically digital, Turing explained, since, examined closely enough, its possible states will vary without limit. But if most of these states can be profitably ignored, leaving only a limited set of relevant distinctions, then functionally the machine may be considered digital. The digital computers considered in the last section may be classified amongst the discrete state machines. These are the machines which move by sudden jumps or clicks from one quite definite state to another. These states are sufficiently different for the possibility of confusion between them to be ignored. Strictly speaking, there are no such machines. Everything really moves continuously. But there are many kinds of machine which can profitably be thought of as being discrete state machines. For instance, in considering the switches for a lighting system, it is a convenient fiction that each switch must be definitely on or definitely off. There must be intermediate positions, but for most purposes we can forget about them. Single quote. An implication is that digits don't exist. They and their combinations are no more than convenient fictions, operating on a level quite independent of the material, physical world. In the case of a binary digital machine, The choice at each point is restricted to off versus on. Crucially, the intrinsic properties of the medium used to encode signals then have no effect on the message conveyed. Off, or alternatively, on, remains unchanged regardless of whether the signal consists of smoke, electricity, sound, light or anything else. In the case of analog, more versus less gradations, this is not so because the range of possible settings is unlimited. Moreover, in the analog case, it does matter which particular medium is being employed. Equating a certain intensity of smoke with a corresponding intensity of light, sound or electricity is just not possible. In other words, only in the case of digital computation and communication can information be truly independent of the physical, chemical or other properties of the materials used to encode and transmit messages. Digital computation and communication operates, then, independently of the physical properties of the computing machine. As scientists and philosophers during the 1950s digested the implications, they exploited the insight to explain why mind apparently operates on so different a level from matter. Descartes' celebrated distinction between a mortal soul and mortal body was conceptualized, following Turing, as no more than the distinction between digitally encoded information on the one hand, and, on the other, the particular physical medium, light, sound, electricity or whatever, chosen to transmit the corresponding signals. Note that the Cartesian assumption of mind's independence of matter implied, in the human case at least, the existence of some kind of digital computer operating inside the human brain. Information and computation reside in patterns of data and in relations of logic that are independent of the physical medium that carries them. When you telephone your mother in another city, the message stays the same as it goes from your lips to her ears, even as it physically changes its form, from vibrating air, to electricity in a wire, to charges in silicon, to flickering light in a fiber optic cable, to electromagnetic waves, and then back again in reverse order. Likewise, a given program can run on computers made of vacuum tubes, electromagnetic switches, transistors, integrated circuits, or well-trained pigeons, and it accomplishes the same things for the same reasons. This insight, first expressed by the mathematician Alan Turing, the computer scientists Alan Newell, Herbert Simon, and Marvin Minsky, and the philosophers Hilary Putnam and Jerry Fodor, is now called the computational theory of mind. It is one of the great ideas in intellectual history, for it solves one of the puzzles that make up the mind-body problem: how to connect the ethereal world of meaning and intention, the stuff of our mental lives, with a physical hunk of matter like the brain. For millennia this has been a paradox. The computational theory of mind resolves the paradox. Single quote, a digital apparatus. Turing did not claim that the human mind really is a digital computer. More modestly, he proposed that digital computers might one day qualify and humanize as machines endowed with mind. However, it was not long before philosophers, most notably Hilary Putnam, took what seemed to be the next logical step, arguing that the human mind itself is a digital computer, or at least that certain mental modules are best understood that way. Noam Chomsky rose to prominence as one of the most audacious champions of this cognitive revolution. Language, he proposed, is a computational module, or device, unique to the human brain. Previously, linguists had thought of language as learned cultural behavior, chaotically variable, inseparable from social life and therefore beyond the remit of natural science. The Swiss linguist Ferdinand de Saussure, for example, had defined linguistics as a branch of semiotics. this in turn being inseparable from anthropology, sociology and the study of man-made conventions and institutions. By picturing language instead as the natural mechanism of digital infinity, Chomsky promised to bring scientific rigor to linguistics as a branch of strictly natural science. In the 1950s, phonology was generally considered the most rigorously scientific branch of linguistics. For phonologists, digital infinity was made possible by the human vocal apparatus conceptualized as a kind of machine consisting of a small number of binary switches. For example, voicing could be switched on or off, as could palatization, nasalization and so forth. Take the consonant B, for example, and switch voicing to the off position, and you get P. Every possible phoneme in any of the world's languages might in this way be generated by specifying a particular on-off configuration of the switches, articulators, constituting the human vocal apparatus. This approach became celebrated as distinctive features theory, in large part credited to the Russian linguist and polymath Roman Jakobson. The basic idea was that every phoneme in every natural language could in principle be reduced to its irreducible atomic components, a set of on or off choices, distinctive features, allowed by the design of a digital apparatus consisting of the human tongue, soft palate, lips, larynx and so forth. Chomsky's original work was in morphophonemics. During the 1950s, he became inspired by the prospect of extending Roman Jakobson's distinctive features approach, now hugely successful, far beyond its original field of application. Jakobson had already persuaded a young social anthropologist, Claude Élie vi Strauss, to apply distinctive features theory to the study of kinship systems, in this way inaugurating structural anthropology. Chomsky, who got his job at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology thanks to the intervention of Jakobson and his student, Maurice Halley, hoped to explore the extent to which similar principles might be applied to the various subdisciplines of linguistics, including syntax and semantics. If the phonological component of language was demonstrably rooted in a digital biological organ or device, why not the syntactic and semantic components as well? Might not language as a whole prove to be a digital organ or device? This led some of Chomsky's early students to the idea of generative semantics, the proposal that the speaker generates word and sentence meanings by combining irreducible constituent elements of meaning, each of which can be switched on or off to produce bachelor. Using this logic, the relevant component of the brain must switch animate, human, and male to the on plus position while keeping married switched off. The underlying assumption here is that the requisite conceptual primitives, irreducible notions such as animate, male, human, married, and so forth, are genetically determined internal components of the human language organ. While this idea would rapidly encounter intellectual difficulties, sparking controversies culminating in the so-called linguistics wars, it attracted young and ambitious scholars impressed by the recent emergence of computer science and its promise of scientific parsimony and unification. If the theory worked, the simple principle of digital infinity would apply to language as a whole. Linguistics in its entirety might then lay claim to the coveted status of natural science. No part of the discipline, not even semantics, need be contaminated any longer by association with such unscientific disciplines as cultural anthropology or social science. See also generative linguistics, origin of language, origin of speech, recursion. Further reading. Knight, C. and C. Power 2008.
Unraveling Digital Infinity. Paper presented to the 7th International Conference on the Evolution of Language. EVOLANG. Barcelona. 2008. Knight. C. 2008. Honest Fakers in Language Origins. Journal of Consciousness Studies. 15. No. 10-11. 2008. pp. 236-48.